Let's look at another example of what's been happening. Here is a summary from a recent report produced by the National Council for Special Education in the Republic. Again, they conclude that there are mixed findings of the superiority of any one approach, and to them it suggests that we should deal with eclectic provision. However, there are some views on this report. Parent view. The report is a biased hatchet job on the rationale for the ABA schools down here. Okay, this is the view of parents. So this is an example of the damage done to the parent relationships. Here's a professional view in that report. This is from the applied representative of the European Association for Behaviour Analysis. There are errors of fact in terms of the author's description and definition of applied behaviour analysis and associated interventions. The report will also be read by others who will not understand that there are errors within it. And he suggested that the National Council for Special Education is ethically obliged to address these concerns. Here's another comment from a professional in New Zealand. Reviewers did a poor job of reviewing the research literature and acknowledged that they resorted to opinion, often their own. Now this is particularly significant because a similar report written in New Zealand had similar errors. And when a number of professionals, including myself, drew attention to these errors to the Minister for Education in New Zealand, to their credit, they called for a review of the material written in ABA. This has not happened in Ireland. More recently, it has also happened in Scotland, when a parent drew attention to the misrepresentation of ABA contained in a document produced by the Department of Education. When these errors were pointed out, to their credit, the government withdrew the material, and this is now currently being revised. To put it in context, medical professionals would not be excluded from reviews of medical research. So why are proactive steps not taken to involve behavioural professionals in reviews of behavioural research? Good question. I've yet to get an answer to it. How do you deal with this kind of situation? Let me show you now the consequences from something I tried. This is a particularly poignant example of the extent of the obstacles preventing the science of behaviour from being properly understood. As a fellow of the British Psychological Society, I wrote to the President and eventually persuaded the BPS to conduct a review of the misinformation in ABA that was contained in the report produced by the Department of Education in the North. Much to my surprise, the review fully supported the initial report by the Department of Education. Bearing in mind that the remit was to address the misinformation in ABA, it might surprise you to learn that there were no ABA professionals on the BPS review team either. Again, this would be akin to medical professionals not being involved in a review of medical research. This is disconcerting because BPS ethical guidelines clearly state that professionals should not operate outside of their own area of expertise. A local politician wrote to the BPS asking them to explain this oversight. Here is part of his letter. Sent in September 2009. On the right hand side of this slide, I've merely rewritten some of the questions to make it easier to read. Now this next slide is the full response that he received from the BPS in relation to these serious questions. Dear George Robinson, thank you for your letter of the 24th of September 2009. The Society is not a public body and is therefore not covered by the Freedom of Information Act requirements. as far as the society is concerned, correspondence in this matter is closed. In other words, we will not give you answers to these questions you've asked about the practices of the British Psychological Society. And so the story continues. Now, this response from the BPS has its doppelganger in the Psychological Society of Ireland. After some pressure, the PSI formed a group in November 2008 to review evidence-based practices in ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. The Secretary of the Division of Behaviour Analysis has been unable to obtain a response from the chair of this group regarding their findings. This next slide might help to put in perspective some possible reasons for the persistence of misrepresentation. This map from the Behaviour Analysis Certification Board shows the number of approved university courses in behaviour analysis up to master's level. Note that there are none in England or Scotland. In Ireland, none existed before PEAT came into existence. Imagine how the map would look for other sciences. So this really is a measure of how far the science has yet to go before it is fully integrated into the UK and Ireland. PEAT introduced ABA to Northern Ireland over 12 years ago as a true non-profit making organisation, and has priced conferences, workshops and home visits as low as possible for parents and ABA tutors. The most eminent and internationally renowned conference speakers have never charged anything at all when delivering keynote addresses or workshops for PEAT. Significantly, the underlying goal of PEAT is not to have to exist. Once ABA is widely available through statutory services, they will dissolve as a group. PEAT understands that parents have their own lives to consider, and running a charity that should not need to exist in the first place only adds unnecessarily to the stresses they already have to bear. Unfortunately, the mistaken view that ABA is a commercial product will extend the problems they endure in the promotion of science-based treatments. Those who misunderstand ABA also place it in the same category as other commercial products. This would be like putting chemistry in the same category as aspirin. In conclusion, what started off here in Ireland as a move by parents to provide education and science to other parents has resulted in the conflict of unprecedented proportions. The losers are parents and their children. A prejudice is a prejudgment, a preconceived belief, opinion or judgment made without ascertaining the facts of a case. Institutional discrimination refers to unequal treatment that is entrenched in basic social institutions, resulting in advantaging one group over another. In view of all that I have covered this morning, I have a simple conclusion, and it is this. Whatever the nature of the debate on treating autism, it clearly is not in the tradition of science, for science does not progress behind closed doors. Education authorities in Ireland can easily deflect accusations of prejudice and discrimination by following the examples of New Zealand and Scotland. And simplest of all, prejudice is best sorted out through education. Sometimes our light goes out, but it is blown into flame by another human being. Each of us owes deepest thanks to those who have rekindled this light. And although I don't have time to go into it now, interestingly the parents from PEAT, working along with myself and other professionals across Europe, have produced a multimedia educational program for teaching about applied behaviour analysis. This program, supported by the Leonardo da Vinci program, the lifelong learning program, includes professionals from Spain, Norway, Germany, England, and of course Northern Ireland. The multimedia CD should be finished by the end of September, and in each of these countries 1,000 free copies will be distributed. This program has been devised to make up for the lack of experienced ABA professionals in each of these countries, and to give parents a head start. Thank you.